All right, ladies and gentlemen, on the Delaware Valley, welcome to Top Lawyer with Sean Quinn. We've got a fantastic broadcast. We're live on WWDB Talk 860. Let me bring in our host, Sean Quinn. How are you, sir?
I am well, Joe. It's I saw your face earlier this week, and the fact that I got a double dose of Joe Doherty magic is always a good day for me.
Thank you.
Lucky you, Sean.
I know it's like when you hit yourself in the head with a hammer, it sure feels good when you stop.
Well, it's funny because I know that's not really what he meant, but that's why I got the mute button right here because I didn't know where it was going. Awesome show, Sonny Banks is. Who's never done the show before?
No, in fact, like the fun fact of this entire thing is my very first radio appearance was on Sonny's show, and this is many moons ago. I think this was like pre-COVID back then,
right.
And my very first ever appearance on any radio show was Sonny's show. So he's certainly no stranger to this environment, so because he's been doing it a lot longer than I have. But, Joe, like our show, it's called Top Lawyer for a reason. And what we try to do is introduce or reintroduce, as it might be for radio show veterans like Sonny. Sonny's kind of a legend in our industry. He's been doing workers' comp almost longer than anybody else in the game here in Philadelphia. I just literally looked at it a minute ago. I'm like 40 years doing workers' comp in Philadelphia and representing injured victims. So no better person to talk about workers' comp, the protection of workers than somebody like Sonny.
No, I appreciate you guys for having me, and I didn't realize, that was the case. That your first radio show was my own. And you're right. I've been doing this for a long time. My 40th anniversary is on 11/25/2025. I can't believe it. I can't believe it.
Sonny, when you started off, did you start off, 40 years ago doing plaintiffs on day one, or how did that? What was your pathway?
I actually started off doing defense work with the city solicitor's office, and I was in their civil litigation unit initially. And then they needed help in the workers' compensation unit. And after about a year and a half, I switched from civil litigation to workers' comp.
And by the way, as we all know, that's a kind of a standard pathway, to cut your chops as a young attorney. Sean, what was your pathway
it was fairly similar, like a lot of folks that end up representing injured victims. It's actually quite rare to start out of the gate on a plaintiff side. It's not, and I think it's probably it's firms like ours are always reluctant to be the one that does all the training right out of the gates because that they're going to potentially leave you. So there's a bit of apprehension, but I think it's also just harder because plaintiffs firms aren't necessarily, unless it's a huge operation, necessarily recruiting from law schools, whereas larger defense firms are more equipped to deal with that. So you see folks coming out of big law or big insurance law. So I clerked for a year. I worked for a judge in New Jersey coming out of law school. I then went to Swartz Campbell, one of the big shops here in town. At that point, it was much bigger, 100+ lawyers. I did that for 11 months, started my LLM at Temple in trial advocacy. And, a month into that program, I got picked off by my now former firm. I've been fortunate. I spent 11 years there and 12+ years at my shop now. I laughed about it the other day. I haven't put together a resume in 23 years. So that's kind of a nice thing.
Sure is.
It's interesting though, because I always thought, when young people are coming out of law school, and you guys are veterans, but and it's obviously getting your chops. I imagine you're both firm owners, okay, and so that's a whole ball of wax that we're going to touch on today. But
yeah,
what's interesting about it is, and I say this just from a layman's standpoint. If I'm injured on the job, okay, let's just say I'm 40 years old and I get injured on the job, I probably wouldn't want a 26-year-old as my, walking in and seeing the kid wet behind the ears, no matter how high landed in his law, class. And so he may be a genius and all that, and but um, I wonder if that is, does that weigh into, like sitting there going, okay, the kid's great. He's got to go, he or she's got to go get some experience and come back with, when he's got some hair under his chin or something like that. So we can at least give the client who may be 50 years old some confidence. Sean, does that weigh into anything at all? I mean, in other words, even in the back of your mind, because we're all very young, and some people did start off on the plaintiff side, but is that another benefit of going to the defensive side and cutting your chops and getting a little maturity before you start representing plaintiffs?
Yeah, I mean, if you had told 26-year-old Sean, he wouldn't have believed you. But 50-year-old Sean certainly has some more rings on the tree. So I can certainly say that, with that experience comes, you're able to do things faster, much more, give things, a proper scope of it. But 26-year-old Sean thought he was the best lawyer in town. And you know what? Listen, I mean, there are some young rock stars out there, right? And I'd like to think that Sonny and I were rock stars back in our early years, and we certainly did some great things. But I will say that, even when I was clerking, I got a really kind of unique opportunity because I wasn't working for either side. I was working for a judge.
Right.
And one of the things that was always, it actually gave me the confidence as a young lawyer, was I saw so much bad lawyering out there. And so many, and it always came down to one thing and one thing only. It wasn't talent, it was preparation. So that was how I looked at it. So I think the key is, if you're going to go with, no matter what lawyer, if you're a consumer out there, make sure it is somebody that, knows the game, but also is going to grind to make sure that you get the result you're looking for, because that hard work, it's like hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. That's the reality in this.
Yeah, and that's always been my mantra, that nobody's going to outwork me. I mean, even to this day, I'm up at 3:30. I'm at my desk by 5, and I'm willing to grind and go to bat for my clients.
No question about it. And so, yeah, Sonny, you and I can talk at 3:30.
Yeah.
Hold on, because that's when I get in. Okay.
I know. I get these emails from you at all hours of the night and morning.
That was the old me when I had the hospitality industry business. Me and Sean would come in from breakfast, and then, no, I'm just kidding. Anyway,
I'm still at breakfast. It's okay.
So you said something. I prep for these shows for. You're not kidding you. Like for about an hour beforehand. Obviously, the three of us individually and together have done countless shows, but a lot of times somebody will say something on a show, takes me on a complete tangent. And, Sean just did say something, and that is, you mentioned the judges, and we're coming off of yesterday's judicial election.
Great.
And, it's amazing when, you see decent turnout, okay? And I myself have worked incredibly hard on, with a number of the candidates that, like, in other words, doing broadcasts, especially Kevin Doherty. We've done a number of shows. Having said that, let's talk a little bit about that, the importance of the judicial elections, because a lot of people just, they don't show up because it's not the mayor, the governor, or the president, right? And so, or a congressman or a senator. And Sean, if you'll jump in first, talk about the importance of yesterday, and also people being educated on that, because there's a hell of a lot more people get impacted by a judge than the governor.
Yeah. So for those that don't have context, yesterday, election day, we had Pennsylvania has a unique system where our judges are elected. That's not what every state has. Some judges are appointed in different states. So New Jersey, for example, we don't have elections. We have appointments for judges. But when you are elected to be a judge, you have a 10-year appointment. And we had 3 Supreme Court justices that were elected back in 2015. Justice Doherty, as you just mentioned, Justice Donahue, and Justice Wecht were all elected back in 2015. And we have this unique system that they are up for retention every 10 years. So we could retain them. So it was a really weird from the populace and the citizen going through this is they had to vote yes or no. And that is just a general, because it's not like you were voting between one candidate or another. It was just whether you want to reelect them to another term of 10 years. So some of the messaging, and deliberately, we live in a very toxic political environment these days. The messaging and the outside influence on what should be a relatively innocuous election became high stakes. And you're right. The impact that the civil justice system is more likely to have an impact on somebody day to day and their ability to pursue a claim and ultimately, have, because there's a lot more car accidents, there's a lot more workplace injuries. All of those things are more likely to affect it than, say, something that the governor does or says. So, and even the president, for that matter, it's people don't realize. And this court specifically, as it relates to my practice, and entered into one of the most significant decisions within the past 6 months that really affect a lot of us that are young parents. You take your kid to these trampoline parks and the jump zones of the world and things like that. And almost all of them have binding arbitration clauses. And so they have these things, these waivers that you're signing. Well, this Supreme Court, led by Justice Dougherty, Donoghue, and Wecht, invalidated the imposition of arbitration clauses as it relates to minors under their 18 birth as a minor. So it was one of the really important decisions because you're basically held hostage. Your little kid wants to go to a birthday party at the jump zone or whatever it might be. And what are you going to tell your kid? You can't go because there's a binding arbitration clause, even if you even know it's there. So the court did an amazing thing to protect the consumer. This is just recently, and it's one of the important things and one of the reasons why you have to sometimes educate your clients and us as trial lawyers. Sonny and I are both members of the PAJ and Philadelphia Trial Lawyers. We try to speak the truth to these things, no matter how dissuaded they become from the political messaging.
And Joe, the importance of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court retention election yesterday is the political affiliation of the three judges who are up for retention. They're all Democrats. So if they weren't successful in the retention election, it could have kind of shifted the political scheme of the Supreme Court.
So it's very interesting. We do, obviously, doing the labor show. I do these show, like, in other words, we do a lot of shows on election and educate yourself on those things. And one of the things, it's so vitally important. So when you talk about the Supreme Court now, when you're voting for president, okay, you're talking about the Supreme Court in Washington, okay, but the statewide Supreme Court we're talking about. However, you got to be educated because it depends upon what your issues are. But economically speaking, okay, one of the things that so I just got off the phone with one of our labor leaders, Jimmy Snell, okay? And one of his members did a commercial, okay? It was my favorite commercial in labor talking about the retention election. And so is a rank and file guy, okay? And talked about, workers' rights and the fact that, the ability to collectively bargain and those things and getting it out there. For labor, that's our life's blood, right? And so we really, getting that point out there was fantastic. Jimmy just said, look, why don't we get you? We get his member and Justice Dougherty to do a broadcast. And we know Justice Dougherty really well. And so we're thinking and we hope it's a great idea. And we think that it's going to be a great, show. But the point is, if you're, for example, a labor union member, you have to know what's on the line there when you're voting for president, and you're not, and you're voting against your economics. It's America. You can do what you want to do. Don't bitch if you're sitting on the bench because your collective bargaining agreements or the National Labor Relations Board, is impacting your livelihood. Oh, it's still your right. It doesn't matter. It's America. You can do what you want. But my point is, I don't think a lot of people, or certainly not all people, equate the two. So when you talk about what you're talking about, Sean, okay, what I love about the trial lawyers is that you're fighting for people's rights right now, that, they're not hurt, but they're, on just the way it's going to be, they're before they even get hurt, so that they have rights. Sonny Banks, in your world, by the way, none of this was in my 2-hour preparation for the show. Okay. But Sonny, in your world, workers' compensation, okay, we have the grand bargain, which, by the way, Sean was there when it was signed back in 1960.
Listen, I'm not as old as you, Joe.
But what I'm saying is that, so they got the grand bargain, and it gives you a worker the right to be able to file a workers' compensation claim in lieu of suing his own employer, and all that. Yet they try to gut it with the medical constantly. So you guys are constantly fighting for the rights in one way or another to make sure that injured workers have, rights when those times, before they even have ever been injured. Okay,
Sure.
Talk about that priority, and I want to ask Sean about tort reform and the fact that you guys do just as good a job on it. Talk about the injured workers, Sonny.
Yeah, I mean, that's really one of the first things that I ask a new client, when I see them, whether their employer has done the two things that they're required to do before the injured worker has to treat with the company or a panel doctor for the first 90 days. The employer has to give them a panel list of at least 6 doctors, and they have to have the injured worker sign what's called an injured worker bill of rights, notifying the injured worker that they're required to treat with the company doctor for the first 90 days or until they're discharged. 9 times out of 10, the employers don't do both of those things. So I want to control the medical from day one, and I'll send that injured worker to, a claimant-friendly doctor right away to make sure not only that the rights are protected, but that they're getting the appropriate medical treatment for their injury.
And for somebody who doesn't really understand that, we, in the workers' comp and the injured workers arena, there are panel doctors that you don't even get a chance to see doctors sometimes. There are panel locations. And so when you talk about a claimant friendly, you're talking about somebody who advocates to somebody, to injured workers, to give them fair treatment and a fair shot at getting better, number one, like you said. And then number two, who will back up and support their findings, and don't have a loyalty towards the insurance company, which the panel doctors are getting paid by them. Sean, talk about fighting what you guys do in regards to fighting tort reform and making sure that people are insured before. People are in the best situation possible, that they have coverage before they get injured.
Yeah. So let me just jump in to dovetail what Sonny was just saying a moment ago, though, and that is, and what Sonny was saying was very important, because to firms like mine, which handle work injury cases, but we handle the third party component to the extent one exists. So just to back it up for those that just maybe don't understand, when you get injured on the job, that you might have not just one claim, but you might have another claim as well, possibly 3. But somebody gets injured on the job, assuming that employer has maintained workers' compensation insurance, they go to somebody like Sonny to really educate them on what their rights are. And for 5 firms like mine that don't do workers' comp every day, I rely upon experts and people that are specialists. And I know Sonny's a certified workers' compensation specialist. So to know those nuances and what to look for, that's why it's critical that firms like mine don't dabble in workers' comp. We stay in our lane. We work in conjunction with the workers' comp lawyer to the extent it's somebody else's fault, not their employer, not their coworker, but maybe it's a multi-employer work site. A lot of our clients are, roofers and plumbers, and maybe they get hurt on a multi-employer work site. I come in to help on those third-party cases. So it's really important that I work with specialists like Sonny to make sure that our clients are adequately represented on the one side while we're doing the other. But to get back to your other question is, much like we were talking about with the judges and the work we're doing, firms like ours have to protect access to justice, whether it's my client or somebody else's client, whether they're the biggest advertiser in the world or there's no advertising at all. We have to protect access, because if we're going to fulfill our mission to truly help people and to truly, make them whole, and honestly, if we were true, constitutionalists and care about the right to a jury trial in this country, as I do, you have to stand up for people, even if they don't know that you're standing up for them.
And it's a fight that never stops. I mean, the insurance lobby is constantly trying to, like we talked about the grand bargain, but they're constantly chipping away at the stone, man.
Oh yeah, well, listen, they have more money than even John Morgan, right?
Right.
So
Unlimited resources.
So between big insurance, big business, and now big venture capital coming into our businesses, in terms of these alternative business structures out in Arizona, or whether we're dealing with MSOs, these multi-state operators that are now entering the business. We have VC money, capital money coming from Wall Street, and frankly, it's even more oppressive. Although the one balancing thing is finally the money is on the side of the plaintiffs in some weird way. So maybe it will balance out some of the tort reform efforts if big business is getting onto the plaintiff side. So we might have an unlikely ally in the battle against the insurance industry simply through these ABSs and MSOs.
Yeah, let's keep our fingers crossed.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're either going to put us out of business or help us. So we'll get there one way.
Right.
So one of the things, so we're talking about maintaining how you guys fight, but the question is, in a lot of ways, and kind of what we started was, yesterday was a judicial election. Okay, how do we educate, and hopefully we're doing it now, but educate the public on not taking a flyer on this one, okay, and making sure that they understand it in almost every aspect of their life, and from their jobs, obviously, to their legal rights and all kinds of other things. That it's important to be educated and then get out there and vote on these elections, like we talked about. That we, what? How do we do that and make sure that they know that yesterday isn't a backup election?
Yeah, from my perspective, Joe, I think what you said is exactly what needs to be emphasized. That a judge is more likely to touch the life of an ordinary citizen than the governor or the president of the United States. So these off-year elections are extremely important. People need to realize that.
And go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we can do is set the tone early in our relationship with our current clients and former clients, and tell them that we are always going to speak truth to it, right? We're going to be straight talkers no matter what. So we send out text messages, we send out emails to our existing clients and former clients to say, listen, I don't care if you're a Republican or Democrat, you want to make sure that the access to justice remains in this country, that we continue to have free and fair elections in this country. I can't believe we even have to have these discussions sometimes, but like here we are. And, so having those discussions with your clients and saying, hey, straight talk, these people are recommended by both sides of the aisle. Nonpartisan bar associations are supporting these folks, and here's what they can do. But I think it comes down to two, is much like us in front of a jury, much like us in front of things. You got to talk in plain English and explain things and give them examples of how it is going to affect them. Because if you talk, it's like anything. If I go in front of a jury and talk in platitudes and use legalese and use lawyer terms, they get lost. They're gone. So right. You have to be able to break down and give them examples of how it affects them, because when it comes down to it, it's meat and potatoes issues. They need to know how it affects their pocketbook, how it affects their family, for them to care.
And it's in every aspect of life. I mean, I got a letter the other day from the radio station about people putting legislation out not to have AM radio on in cars, and they do that because they don't want a voice coming at them. Okay, and so you got to really just be smart and educate yourself, because at the end of the day, if you don't get involved in the process, what I love about Sonny and Sean, you guys aren't standing on the sidelines. Okay, that is and letting somebody else legislate. Okay, that should tell, by the way, something to your clients. Literally from day one, because you're not only fighting for them, in the courtroom, obviously, and you're also fighting, for them legislatively in Harrisburg. We got a minute left for this break, Sean. So ultimately, what happened yesterday? Like, in other words, which way is the pendulum swinging?
Yeah. So listen, I think yesterday was a good sign for those that care about the access to civil justice. Yesterday was a good day for those that maybe are unhappy with the current climate in this country, and hopefully these things turn the temperature down to get us back to a place where we are understanding and respecting of human rights, understanding and respecting of that people should be able to live their lives with dignity. And ultimately now in Pennsylvania, our populace and our people know that they have a Supreme Court that has the backs of the people and not the business interests.
Fantastic. All right, listen, we're going to have more from Top Lawyer with Sean Quinn and our guest, Sonny Banks, in just a minute.
Welcome to the Jet Setters and the High Rollers, to the Shot Takers and the Tastemakers. Welcome to the Viewfinders, the Thrill Seekers, and the Night Owls. Welcome to everything you could possibly want on one 5-mile island. Welcome to the Wildwoods. Book your stay today.
Welcome back to Talk Top Lawyer with Sean Quinn. We've got a fantastic broadcast. Our host is Sean Quinn Law Group, and of course our guest is Sonny Banks of Banks Law and the Sonny Banks Show here on WWDB Talk 860. So that was really a fantastic segment. I love that conversation, especially when you talk about judicial elections and what people need to understand. Let's kind of segue a little bit to those clients that we talk about. Okay. I came up with a segment a little bit, things that clients should know, mistakes that they should avoid, and how they can, assist in their own case with their attorney. Okay. And because typically speaking, it's a very difficult, tumultuous time for an individual that has, gone through what literally, and is going through what they're going through, especially before they meet you gentlemen. Okay. And so wanted to throw that topic out there and throw some things out there in regards to maybe communications with their attorney. Okay. Sean and Sonny, we've all talked about this. The importance of obviously, you hear in the news about the biggest issue with attorneys is the communication, and by the way, that's a big one. Luckily, we get the best of the best on the show, so we that's a priority to your practices. But one thing back is the communications from the client to the attorneys, and the reason I say that is I'll start off by asking Sean the importance of a client communicating everything. If somebody got injured recently, but they had a high school injury in the same knee, or other different types of things, and it goes the same with you, Sonny. What's the importance of being honest and being in depth with a client to the attorney, Sean?
Yeah. So one of our core values at our firm is straight talk. I say it almost in every interview we do. It's something that I just believe in. When you talk to me, you get what you see. I'm going to shoot it straight to you at all times. But straight talk is a two-way street. And that requires us to be on the same page, honest with one another. And as I've said to you before, Joe, communication starts before somebody ever becomes a client of your firm. It starts in how we market to them. It starts in how we communicate with them before they ever sign with us. And we have to make sure that we are advising them of the process, what the expectations are, and what they can expect from us. And I think, once they are a client, it doesn't stop. You have to continually talk to them. And yeah, we can, as lawyers and firms, automate some of those processes. There's been a lot of advancements in technology, software, and frankly, AI within the past, year and a half that has given us the ability to automate some of these things. But I think, the number one bar complaint when people complain about their lawyer comes down to communication. So we know that as lawyers, and we have to do everything in our power to make sure that we communicate regularly with them. But reality is, we do get clients that lie to us, right? We do get clients sometimes deliberately, sometimes they literally forget some things. But we have to be able to make sure that if we do get misinformation or whatever it is, that we make sure it wasn't deliberate, that they were trying to hide something from us. Because if that's the case, that not to give a movie quote, but the circle of trust is broken at that point. And it's really difficult to repair and mend that if you lose trust and faith in your client.
Sonny, you want to jump on that?
Yeah, just like all important relationships, it really boils down to trust. Think about it. If you can't trust your lawyer, who can you trust? You're actually, putting, your legal life in the hands of your attorney. So your attorney needs to know everything. And I think what clients need to understand is most things have a paper trail. So if you don't tell me now, I'm going to find out later. And it's better if I find out in a controlled environment than when you're on the stand and you're being cross-examined by the other side.
It's interesting because the first thing both of you were talking was going to see my doctor, right? And and by the way, personal injury, workers' compensation, there's a lot of different, especially personal injury, a lot of different types of personal injury. And Sean, I know you practiced.
But Joe, can I just jump in real quick? And this is something that I think, folks like myself and Sonny have to really educate, because we represent injured workers. Most of those workers end up being men. Most of those men are macho and, have a bravado to them. We have to do a good job of getting to them early in the process to say, listen, when you go to the doctor, that's not the opportunity for you to be a tough guy. Okay. That is not the opportunity for you to say, hey, I'm doing great, because listen, this isn't you saying it to your friends. This is going to come back and backfire if you do have pain and you're glossing over it. So take down the tough guy image, save that for your boys on the corner, and be honest when you talk to your doctor.
And that's kind of where I'm going. A lot of times when you're talking to your doctor or your lawyer, you guys may not see this because you're lawyers, okay? But some people are intimidated by their, doctors and lawyers, and they may, they may be afraid to tell you about that high school injury. They may be afraid to, tell you about something they feel embarrassing. And like I was saying, Sean, some of the cases that you deal with are not only workplace injuries, but they can be another type of negligence where somebody may have been sexually assaulted, and let's just say it was, a man, and he's literally, and so that is a type of civil case that you would handle, and so, and Sonny, in your world, like Sean said, people may be afraid to, tell you about a previous injury because they're afraid that you'll get mad at them or something like that. How do you, as attorneys and experienced long-term ones, how do you kind of keep the awareness that the client is not only going through a lot, but they may even be intimidated by the process? So the lie that they tell, as detrimental as it may be, was one that, it not that it wasn't intentional, but it was out of intimidation or something like that, and they would just feared, telling you that. You break that down at the beginning. You walk in and say, I know it's a hard time for them, and they may be a little uncomfortable. They may have never talk to an attorney like the two of you before in their life? I'll ask Sonny first, then go to Sean.
Yeah, I mean, I try to establish a comfort level from day one. I spend at least an hour and a half with a client at the initial meeting. I let them do a lot of the talking, and I just listen. And then I, ask questions in order to get some more details. But I think establishing that comfort level from the very beginning allows the client to relax and allows them to be more forthright.
Sean, in your world, the intimidation factor, somebody may walk in, you take all that in consideration on day one. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you can connect to them, and as Sonny said, listen to them, hear them, let them know you understand them, but also, just be real with them. I think it goes a long way. I think, when I was, a kid, a 10-year-old, a 15-year-old, my vision of what a lawyer was is vastly different than who I am. I was, saw some dude with white hair and it was just this image of, and the reality is, I don't look or talk like every other lawyer, and I think that's a good thing. And I think, I grew up in a blue collar family. I could communicate with them on a level that I think is an advantage when I talk to my clients and let them know that I'm one generation removed from where they are right now, and not even, we're talking 20 years difference. So the reality is it's very easy to make a connection, and honestly, sometimes you can't, right? And if that's the case, they're not the right person for my team. They're not the right client, and there are firms that are going to be better equipped, and I'm not afraid to refer them somewhere else if we can't communicate on a level that is going to be, because we're going to be on the same team. Like, we have to be connected and on the same team, and if there's distrust or whether it's a language barrier, maybe not literally but figuratively, it has to work.
Something that's, now, you would mention gray hair, right? Any gray beards? Because that was my team.
Yeah,
Yes, I have one.
Sonny earned that beard with 40 years in the game. So he's put that to good use. So Joe, if I may, one of the things that I'm always been interested in when I talk to law firm founders, because we've seen a lot of things, and Sonny's been doing this for 40 years, and the marketing landscape has changed so much over the past 40 years. And honestly, it's changing by the minute today. And Sonny, you're as somebody who's been in this game for a long time, both at a big shop and then obviously at your firm, now you've marketed on TV, you've been on billboards, you've had bus stops. I've seen them. So in terms of, the lessons you learn through all of that and the acquisition. So if you were talking to a young lawyer, maybe in today's market who is opening up a firm, how do you tell them to battle the 800-pound gorillas that maybe are out there, from a marketing standpoint, because it's hard?
Yeah. I found that the best marketing, at least from a comp standpoint, is word of mouth. I think that your clients and the people that you touch, and I'm talking about people who you may see for an initial client meeting, or you may do a Zoom meeting and not take them on as clients. If you're able to establish a relationship with them, they're going to give your name to family and friends when their family and friends run into a legal issue. So, you can spend a lot of money on billboards and buses and television, but I still think that word of mouth is the best form of advertising.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it always comes down to people like, and trust, right? Those are the those key things. And honestly, if you were looking for a plumber right now, and rather than searching Google and looking at all the 5 stars, that helps when you don't have. But if you have a friend or your neighbor's like, hey, I just used this guy, he was great, you're going to go with that guy. You're going to, because it's that trust factor that's built in from either family or friends.
Yeah, I don't want to rely on a cold call. I want to rely on somebody who has, an experience with this particular lawyer is going to give me a good referral.
And Joe, you were talking about the us as young lawyers earlier, and remembering back to the 26. But this is something I started thinking about for my own self, and that is, what advice would I give to rookie Sean? Like opening up, whether it's rookie working for another firm, or I think I try to go back 12 years when I opened my firm and try to advise myself on what I should be doing. And listen, I've made every marketing mistake known to man. I'm sure Sonny can relate to that, but like, if you could give advice to your younger self when you're opening up your firm, what would you tell them?
I'd probably focus on the grind. I think if, you grind out your practice and you do your very best in every case, the word is going to go out that you're an exceptional lawyer and you're going to get referrals organically. It's just going to happen.
Sean, I wanted to throw something out there with all the things that are coming into the market. And Sonny, by the way, I did talk to Sean about our new endeavor, and
Oh, good.
Sean, so we're going to be having that conversation. But I saw something on Facebook, okay, and it was on a Reels now, and it still says that, for example, Harvard Business Law, not Harvard Business Law, but Harvard Business still says a large portion of people that are going to be doing business are people who like each other. And one of the things, even about what we do here, guys, is that we're trying to obviously educate the public and do those things, but also bring quality attorneys together. Because as you guys know, and Sean, you mentioned it many times, but a great example of third-party cases is having a network of other attorneys that are an extension of your firm when something happens. So when you talk about a third-party construction case, Sean, you're going to want to, you're going to handle the negligent part of it, and then send it to somebody like Sonny, who you trust, who is an extension of your firm in that situation. Okay, and so I try to network people together because I think that's an area that is wide open. Okay, in regard the human touch. So even though this is the digital world, and we're all an example of it right now, the connections back and forth, especially when you're making relationships that you're going to refer to other people, they still make a major play. And so in the day of law, there are still areas of law that are still based on, like you guys said, Sonny, credibility of the case. Sean, that's a huge part of what you guys do. So no matter how the world changes, okay, that's why we talk about AI, and we're all getting into it, but you can never really, under any circumstances, discount the quality of a person who's the lawyer, the fact their ability to talk to people, their ability to manage a client base, okay, and have that heart to heart.
Yeah. Joe, you hit on something, and I think it dovetails nicely with the question that I asked of Sonny about giving advice to your younger self. And I was able to open my firm in the first place because of connections, because of relationships, because of firms that were referring me business regularly. I was able to take that leap as an entrepreneur because of those things. And I think what I would tell a young lawyer who is, maybe working for a bigger operation is make sure you water the plants, right? Make sure you start to, do the work to establish your relationships, build your referral network. And then once you build it, keep watering, make sure you communicate. Tell guys that maybe if Sonny refers me a case, that if that person, it might not have anything to do with workers' comp. Sonny might have an auto accident case or a slip and fall case, and he knows that we're going to give him quarterly reports. We're going to give him updates on those cases. And if that person ever comes back or refers anybody, he gets the proverbial, second generation on those referrals, because he knows that once he refers to us, we're always going to take care of him and his people. And that's how you build lasting relationships. So if I'm advising somebody in business school right now, not even a lawyer, make relationships, talk to people, be friendly. It can only help you in terms of your own development in life. And frankly, at this younger generation, they need to learn how to talk again. They've been so tethered to their phones all these years. And Sonny's got kids. I have kids. We got to make sure that they learn how to effectively communicate face to face, not just via text in some sort of English, whatever it is.
Yeah, I was going to add to that. You're absolutely right, because when you leave a firm, you can't necessarily take the clients with you for ethical reasons, but you can take those relationships that you established with you to jettison or jumpstart your own practice.
And by the way, I do want to say something. I saw something on Facebook yesterday where an attorney.
Because you're a boomer and you're on Facebook all the time.
I saw this attorney and his wife taking their 18-year-old son to vote for the first time.
Yeah.
So, Sean, that you were like the best dad on the planet. That was such an awesome thing. I know we had the voting conversation, but it's just you're a great example.
Yeah,
I appreciate that, Joe. Yeah, Sonny, my son turned 18 on Sunday, and we made sure to get him registered to vote in advance of that, knowing that 2 days later he could cast his first vote. And it was pretty cool. Like, that's a neat moment as a parent. And I know you've been through this, is like when your kid, listen, our whole lives, we want them to grow up. And then when they grow up, you're like, oh crap, why did we let this happen? Sure. But one of the nice things is seeing your kids kind of like take those, it's like when they get their driver's license, they go to college, my son's a senior in high school, and watching those things, but having them be so connected to, the political and the civic justice, civic duty of voting really gives you that pride.
Absolutely. A special moment.
And definitely, I mean, they're just moments in life. So I thank you for sharing that one, man, because it was just a great, great, great moment. So,
because most of the time my posts are about the Phillies and those other things. So, yeah.
Yeah. And Sonny and you guys, the two of you,
we have to have a separate show where we talk about Dave Dombrowski.
Yeah, for sure. As you know, Sean, you and I get, and so is Sonny.
It's either a show or therapy that we're going to have, but either way.
You notice we didn't talk any baseball. And because we got into the election coverage, and that was fantastic. But usually the three of us, that would be an entire show plus 5. We got plenty of time for that on the next one.
Yeah.
But listen, I want to giving back, Sean. Okay. I want to
that time of the year, man.
Yeah. And so I know that's a big part of what you do. And I'm Sonny as well. And that you like to make that a big part of it to the show. And like you said, Thanksgiving's right around the corner. Christmas.
Yeah, this is our last show before the Thanksgiving holidays. So for those that don't remember, my firm, what started out 10 years ago with a donation of 25 turkeys to my son was going to Waldron Mercy Academy at the time. And it was important. They took a donation. I think it was actually 10 turkeys, and we donated it to the school. And I never knew up until that moment how good I would feel by giving. And I didn't know how much it would impact the people, because sometimes when we live in our own silos and our gated communities or nice homes, we lose sight of what's important. And sometimes you need like that boomerang to bring us back. And for me, it was Thanksgiving donation. So now we work with 4 different organizations in the city: the Frankfurt Community Development Corporation, Mercy Neighborhood Ministries, Antioch Church in West Philly, and make sure that we donate to them. And last year we had our biggest year where we gave away 250 turkeys. I think it was like 50 pies, all these gift cards. And now it's even, with SNAP being cut off for all these families and EBT cards being cut off, I'm doing a run of all these gift cards over to Antioch. My good friend Aaron Campbell, who runs that church and that youth ministry over there, is doing amazing things to help inner city Philadelphians get a little opportunity in life, and it's just amazing. And I also do it with a couple different organizations, Focused Athletics. My buddy Jack Duncan, who works with them, he always brings some of his guys. And in fact, one of the guys that gave away turkeys with us about 5 years ago was Tyke Smith, who was a safety on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers now. So we got to have some guys that are now NFL players, guys that have come through his program. It's really important to us. We are big believers in giving back to our community, and we have our entire team giving away these turkeys because having days of service within our team is part of our core value.
Sonny and I do something called Sparking the Dream. Okay, and Sonny, this is an interesting. So I was a guest judge at Philadelphia University, Jefferson last week. And I got to tell you, so the kids gets in there. So we do different, and with the Spark of the Dream, we do broadcasts. So we'll bring the students in and the attorneys or any professionals or even building trades people. The kids will talk about their dreams and the pathway to success with the professionals. And so we do an internship every summer where we educate the kids, and they do their own talk radio show, 2 of them live on air. And so it's been phenomenal. But this past week, what was really cool was I did this kind of like it's a DECA thing. It's a career technical education. Anyway, bringing these 2 kids from Roxborough High School in, right? These kids were so impressive. And 2 or 3, and there's a whole group of like 50, they're different schools. But at the end, and they had just met each. It was so exciting to watch young people develop and have opportunity. And I got to tell you, Sonny, talking about it's you walk out of there, sometimes you can't, your eyes are watering.
Yeah, I mean, it's really special to give the young kids a seat at the table and to have them experience not only a radio show but the relationships of the guests that you invite to the program, and it's really one of the few times where you're able to hear the good things about students in Philadelphia. I mean, most times you hear bad stuff, shootings and whatnot, but the program is fantastic, and I'm happy to be a part of it.
And we do a lot of the shows at Banks Law, so it's an incredibly cool thing. Sean, you said it. So right. You never really felt. Sean, I can tell you this: the first show we did at Banks Law, I didn't sleep all night long. We work with the Philadelphia School District, right? I was scared to death that the kid who was coming in wasn't going to talk, and he was going to be not. We make him feel comfortable, and it's just a great experience. And so with the holiday season coming, it doesn't get any better than that.
Sure doesn't.
So we got about a minute left, Sonny. Contact information of you at the firm.
Absolutely. Banks Law, 215-561-1000, and our web address is www.bankslaw.com.
Fantastic. Sean Quinn, if you will, sir.
Yeah, Joe, great show as always. Sonny, thanks for hopping on with us today. Excellent as always. You can hit us up at quinnlawyers.com. Soon, you will also have quinnwins.com. We own it. We haven't branded it yet, but quinnwins.com will be out there for you folks. And you can always email me, Sean@quinnlawyers.com.
Fantastic. And listen, I also want to announce that this broadcast will be available on Apple, Roku, and Fire TV for the NetStream app. I want to thank everybody for tuning in to Top Lawyer with Sean Quinn. We want to thank Sonny Banks, our guest. And, of course, we want to thank our host, Sean Quinn of Quinn Law Group. On behalf of Sonny Banks, Banks Law, Sean Quinn, Quinn Law Group, I'm Joe Doherty. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Welcome to the Jet Setters and the High Rollers, to the Shot Takers and the Tastemakers. Welcome to the Viewfinders, the Thrill Seekers, and the Night Owls. Welcome to everything you could possibly want on one 5-mile island. Welcome to the Wildwoods. Book your stay today.